guys dig this Cedar Roast mug? It's like one of my favorite mugs. Heck, working on a little something right now. It's actually a collaboration track, so I'm gonna send this off to a buddy here pretty soon, but just, you know, finalizing a few things, and I will send it off to him. Hey guys, what's up? My name's Grant Borland, and today I want to talk about something a little bit different than other videos. Today I kind of want to talk about a certain experience in my career writing music that really was profound, really kind of changed my life in a lot of ways. And basically what it is earlier this year I had heard some of my music in a movie theater. I went to go watch a movie, and then, you know, before the movies they have the trailers and the previews that play beforehand, and one of those trailers included some of my music, and it was very surprising. You know, I knew my music had landed in this trailer, but I wasn't expecting to hear it in the movie theater myself, you know, through the theater's you know, sound system. Like, it sounded incredible. It's a lot different than just watching a trailer on YouTube or whatever the case is.
Train them in isolation to prepare them for life in space. 2. The voyage will take 1.
I'm scared.
Of what? To be scared of.
It was a pretty profound moment for me personally, but I want to kind of share about how that happened, and not only how it happened for me, but kind of how it can happen for you if you're interested in writing trailer music and things like that. So I've kind of made a little list of some talking points, which is a little different than the other videos I've been doing. There's a little bit more thought into this because there's a lot of moving parts that happen for this to happen. So basically, 6 months ago from the time I'm making this video, so back in March of 2021, a second theatrical trailer for a movie called Voyagers dropped. You know, the first 40 seconds of that trailer, or the intro of the trailer, used a song I wrote called Avalanche. And Avalanche was a track I wrote for a publisher called Gothic Storm, and it was part of one of their releases called Somber Yet Hopeful Intros, which was an album that was focused around, you know, 60-second pieces, if you will. They were like it was really designed to be licensed for intros to trailers, so it wasn't so intense and in your face like you'll get with some of the trailer back ends or the climax for a track. It was more of just the intro, setting the tone, that sort of thing. So this album was completely dedicated to those types of work, and the song I wrote a few for the album actually, but they were around that time limit too. I think, you know, anywhere maybe 45 to 60 seconds long, so they were short. Yeah, I wrote a few tracks for that, and that was back in February of 2020. So it took, you know, a little over a year for it to actually find a home in the trailer, but it's just so rewarding when it ends up happening. Hey, what's up, dude?
Yeah, I just woke up.
Oh, you just woke up. Sick, man. I'm making a video. Say hi to the camera.
Hi, camera. Oh, speak of the devil, I'll send you a lo-fi track if you want to use it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, send it my way. I'll use it as the background music.
So, I mean, do you want to film and just give me a call back, or do you want to?
Yeah. Let me finish this up. I've got a script for this one, so I'm kind of going through it right now. I'll do that, and I'll give you a call back here when I'm done filming it.
All right, sounds good, man. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. Thanks. Bye. Anyways, what was I saying? I think I was saying that, yeah, basically, I wrote the track back in February of 2020. It took about a year before it found a home in a trailer. A lot of times with trailers, they're either licensing like custom music, so sometimes you'll get a brief to write something for a specific trailer. That's really popular right now. Like, Sometimes you'll hear like cover songs, or just not even cover songs. Sometimes you'll just hear songs that are remixed and trailerized into a certain trailer. So that's a version of a custom. Sometimes they just want custom music in general written, and then other times you'll get briefs from publishers to write for a certain album, and then they'll pitch those songs for upcoming trailers that they think would fit the brief well. So that's kind of what happened in this scenario. It was a library track I wrote for an album, and then a little after a year later, it found its way into a trailer. So sometimes it happens, and it just shows that sometimes patience and persistence really pay off. Just keep at it, keep writing tracks, and you never know what can come from it. So basically that's my experience, seeing my music in a trailer. I've been fortunate enough, I've had a few placements, but this was my first theatrical trailer that I actually saw in a movie theater. I've had other various TV spots, a little 30-second spot here and there, things of that nature. But this was different for me because not only was it a placement, but it was a placement I saw in the movie theater, and I really wasn't expecting to hear it in there. So that's kind of why I want to highlight this specific, event. But that's kind of enough about that. I kind of want to get into talking about how you as a composer might be able to get your music into trailers as well. And so I've got a list here of some talking points I think were really important. Basically, I got into the industry through a friend. I didn't really know what trailer music was, but I got into it through a friend. We had a conversation on Facebook, of all places, about the music to the video game Minecraft, and we had talked about, we both agreed on how good the soundtrack was to it, and that kind of started a friendship. And really, it was kind of like networking, even though I wasn't expecting it. I didn't really know what trailer music was, and I didn't know this guy was working in trailers. We started a friendship, we started talking, and little ways down the road, he basically started bringing me on to projects he was working on. We collaborated on a track, and then he also started working for some of these publishers, so he would throw opportunities my way, and that's kind of how I got into it. But I realize it's not going to be that way for everybody. So if I were to go back, and this thing didn't happen to me, but I were to give myself advice on how to get into the industry anyways, that's kind of what this list is. This is what I'm going to talk about. So basically, where do you start? You see trailers on TV, and there's obviously music underneath those trailers. How can you make your music, a part of that kind of industry? And so, it's a loaded question, but, really what it is a lot of times you as a composer will write for a publisher. You can kind of think of them as like a record label in a way, because they're similar, but they're more focused on licensing music for, digital media, whether that's trailers, TV spots, TV shows, commercials, advertisement, all those types of things. They focus on that more so than putting out physical, albums, vinyls or whatever, all the other stuff that a record label might take care of, all the A&R stuff, those types of things. A publisher kind of focuses more on a specific niche or a specific thing in the industry. Basically, you want to find a publisher. So I think a good place to start would be YouTube, honestly. There's different YouTube channels out there that host trailer music and epic music, things of that nature. But there's one called Trailer Music Weekly. They, I would say, are a really good starting point, or that's what I would recommend for me anyways if I was starting out. They post songs that have been licensed in trailers. Now, in more recent years, I've noticed that they post a variety of different songs, but there's still a good amount of songs that they post that were actually licensed into trailers themselves. And the reason I think that this is important as opposed to maybe some other YouTube channels that post epic or trailer music is it's important to listen to the music that actually places. There's a lot of good trailer music out there, but not all of it lands, and I think it's really important to focus on the stuff that's landing, and editors and music supervisors are interested in licensing. So I think Music Trailer Weekly is a really good spot for that. Also, on their videos, they will credit oftentimes the publishers and the composers behind those tracks. So I think the reason why I think it's a good starting point is, one, you can hear the quality standard of the music that these publishers are looking for, and two, you can also get the names of the publishers and composers behind those tracks. So I know that helped me out a lot. Even when I got into the industry a little bit, it was really good for me to reference certain tracks that were being used, and I would kind of model my stuff after it. I wouldn't copy it per se, but I think I would study the structure and then the production quality of it too, and I would just keep practicing at that. So I think that's a really good resource. I think that's where I would recommend starting out. But after, let's say you've gone through it, and let's say you come up with a list of a few different publishers. Let's say you have a list of anywhere from 5 to 15 different publishers that you found doing, research for about an hour on YouTube or whatever it is. I think from then I would focus on, writing trailer music. I would write a variety of genres, but I think once you find a genre you're good at, or you think you're good at, I would focus on making a list of, maybe 5 to 7 different songs in that style, and just get a list of your best ones, because this is basically going to be your pitch. You're selling yourself to these publishers. Once you have that list of songs that you think are really, really good, I think I would go ahead and I would look up the websites to these publishers you found. Let's say you've got 10 different publishers and you find their websites. You go to each site, and oftentimes there's going to be a contact tab. You can find their email that way, or a lot of times they'll have a whole contact landing page where you fill out the little boxes, name, last name, email, and subject. A lot of websites have that. My website has that too. But basically I would reach out to these publishers once you have a list of tracks. I would introduce yourself in the email. It's basically a cold email or whatever. I would introduce yourself, what you do, and I would ask them if they're looking for new composers, new composers to fill out their roster or whatever the case is. I would not attach the list of your songs to them in your opening email. I think I would ask them, and I would wait for a reply. If they're interested and they're like, yeah, we're looking for new composers, then I think I would go ahead and I would send them a link to your music. Whether that be, SoundCloud or Dropbox links, or some people like Disco. I think it's different publisher to publisher, but generally if you can send them 5 to 7 tracks in your best style, that'll be very, very useful. I think some people might try to write 5 to 7 tracks in a variety of styles. Maybe they'll have one track that's epic orchestral or hybrid orchestral, sound design tracks and horror tracks, things like that. If you're good at all those genres, great, but I've heard from multiple publishers that they prefer people sending them the tracks and the genres they're best at, because if you're good at that, then they're going to think of you when those types of album concepts and briefs come up. So I think it's really good. If you're good at a genre, focus in on that and go from there. Also, another thing, let's say you send an email and it takes them a while to reply, or maybe they don't reply at all. Don't get discouraged. A lot of times these publishers are very busy with work. Maybe they have albums lined up. They've got a ton of composers they're already working with. That's fine. That's normal. Or maybe you send them your tracks and they reject it. It's just not up to their quality standard yet. Don't get discouraged there either. Don't quit there. I think it's a normal thing. I think rejection in this industry is a very normal thing, and I think it's good to get used to it, truthfully. You're going to hear no, and you're going to be rejected a ton of times, whether that's through a publisher, or maybe you've got a track that's about to finish in a trailer or a cut, and then it ended up falling through. It happens a lot, and so I think it's just good to start getting used to hearing the words no, and just keep pushing through. I think that's a good principle to apply to life anyways, with no matter what industry you're in. Just get used to that and keep pushing through. I think at the end of the day, the passion's going to be what carries you through anyways. So I talked about publishers, but I want to talk about specific composers too. So let's say you're looking at Trailer Music Weekly's YouTube channel or something, or maybe you follow some of these publishers on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or whatever the case may be. Maybe you'll see them credit certain composers for placements or albums that they've written. I think it's beneficial to sometimes reach out to some of those composers too. And don't reach out in the case of seeing what they can do for you. I think it's really important to try to befriend people. Be genuine and reach out to people. Maybe there's a track that they did that you like. You want to tell them how much you liked it, or you had a question about a track. You thought this track was really good, but I didn't know how you got this sound at this part, or whatever the case may be. Reach out to people. Be nice and genuine. But a lot of people in the industry I found are pretty down to earth, at least in my experience. So I think it's worthwhile, reaching out to those types of people, because they might be able to give you feedback on tracks you're working on, or maybe you have a question on how they achieved a certain sound, and they help you out with that sort of thing. So it's very beneficial on top of, researching publishers to also reach out to some of the composers that are behind these albums and placements as well. And that's just basic networking, honestly. If you want to get into the industry, it's really important to network and become friends with certain people, whether that be publishers or composers. I think the more people you know, the better. It's only going to further your career, and it just makes it more fun, honestly. A couple advantages to working with composers is, first of all, if you're working with a composer that's writing for publishers, they know the standard or the quality standard that these publishers are looking for. Obviously, they've done it a few times. If they've got placements, that's great. If they're writing for publishers, that's great too, because they're getting their tracks approved. So their music's at a certain standard of quality right now. So it's good to, become friends with those types of people, and maybe they can give you honest feedback on your tracks. Maybe you think your music's good, but how are you gonna know what you're missing unless someone who's trusted can give you feedback on that. I know for me that helped me out a lot. Like, I was writing music and I would share it with like my friends and my family and things like that, but eventually you get better at it, right? And eventually you get to the point where friends and family, especially if they don't write music themselves, they might not be able to give you, very useful feedback on your tracks. Maybe they think the tracks that you're writing are incredible and they don't see why they wouldn't be placing in trailers. But maybe getting feedback from someone who's doing it professionally and they are consistently landing placements and stuff, maybe they hear something in your music that could really be improved, and you wouldn't know unless you reached out to some of those people, which is good, because if you're getting that feedback from a composer, you're way more likely to get accepted and approved by a certain publisher when the time comes to pitch to them, if that makes sense. Another possible advantage to becoming friends with composers is if they trust the music you're making, if they think that it's at a high quality standard, they might vouch for you to other publishers. It's happened to me. Sometimes a publisher has came to me, they've emailed me or whatever the case was, because another composer had recommended me to them, and they asked me, hey, do you want to write for us? Whether that was custom music or that was library, like catalog type stuff. But those types of things are important to keep in mind too. You'd be surprised how far that can get you, just word of mouth. And then I think a final advantage to becoming friends with composers is the whole opportunity for collaboration. If you're able to collaborate with a composer who knows good trailer music and knows what's licensable, I think it's really beneficial for you, because you're going to start getting music into these publishers' catalogs. That was the very first track I ever wrote for a publisher, was a collaboration track. I had a buddy that kind of took me under his wing, and I co-wrote a track with him that ended up on an album for a publisher, and then it was kind of all uphill from there. Like, it was all, it opened up opportunities for me ever since I had that first track out there. And it's just really interesting to see, how other composers work, how they write music. It was really, honestly, quite fascinating to dive into another composer's stems and kind of hear, you can hear how they structure their drum tracks or their strings or their brass or things like that. Sometimes when you hear a full track, certain things can get lost in translation. Maybe you listen to a trailer track and you're really focused on the drums and the hits, but you're totally overlooking all the really unique synth and signature sound bits. So having all those stems and being able to study all that as you're writing really helps out a lot too, and that's what helped me out a lot. You get a lot better that way, kind of digging into other people's tracks. So yeah, having collaboration gets you in with publishers too, and other opportunities will present themselves to you that way. So in conclusion, I kind of want to wrap it up. In conclusion, trailer music can take a while to get into. I've been fortunate enough to write with some good publishers, and I've had some pretty cool placements, but I think it took me about 2 years of, kind of trying at this before I actually landed my first trailer placement. Mind you, I've had some TV stuff that's came up, I've had music on TV shows and stuff, and that stuff came through a little bit faster than trailers. But trailers themselves took me about 2 years before I ever saw anything. I think it was 2019 when I got my first trailer placement, which was awesome. But just know that it's not a race, it's a marathon. So, keep at it, keep practicing. That's what's important. Figure out what makes a trailer track licensable. I mean, hell, I'm still learning myself. You know, I've been working in trailer music for a few years now, but I'm still learning stuff every day. You know, I think my music's gotten a lot better, but I'll still send stuff to publishers and they'll tear it up and they'll tell me to, you know, redo certain parts or whatever, and you just learn a lot. First of all, you develop a thick skin having someone tear apart your music. You know, secondly, you're just gonna get better that way. I mean, hearing feedback is so crucial. I feel like the improvement I've made in the past 3 or 4 years like has just escalated so much because of feedback. Like I think if I were to try to do it on my own, I feel like it would take me 10 to 15 years to get at a certain skill level if I didn't have professional feedback on my tracks. Like, it'll save you so much time. You'll think about music differently, from production, like mixing and production aspects, to just general arrangement and songwriting. Like, all those things are so important. You know, working with composers and publishers and getting that feedback is really gonna escalate that process for you. So I don't know, I just wanted to kind of make a short video, put it out there for people. I know like a lot of my friends and colleagues might see this and they already know these types of things, but I wanted to make a video for like a wider, more general audience, because I know, you know, maybe a year from now someone like you might stumble on this video and maybe you're curious about trailer music and you didn't know where to start or where to begin. And so I kind of just want to make that video for people that might be interested but they don't know how to get into it. So I don't know, I hope it was interesting, I hope it helped. But yeah, thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time.